We're live, ladies and gentlemen, for all you data lovers out there, waiting just a moment for LinkedIn Live to warm up, to hit the airways. Delighted to be here. Another exciting episode of talking about data, telling data stories. Not quite sure what we're calling this yet, but I will wait until I see confirmation from the LinkedIn Live gods that we are in fact living right now. Okay, I see that. There we go. Hi, everybody. Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer here, ready for another episode of Telling Data Stories. Very excited today because we are introducing a new partnership that I have with the Comma Group. Stuart Squires, Storyteller-in-Chief over at the Comma Group, will be joining me in just a moment, but I want to know where you're all joining in from. So let us know, as usual, where you're joining in from. Glad you're able to take a moment of your day and share it with us as we tell everybody's favorite kind of story, data stories. So up here again, high atop the Data Whisperer World Headquarters in the Fairweather Tower, beautiful Black Rock, Connecticut, on the shores of the Herman Beach. You should check us out. Take a look in Google. You'll find it there, the Herman Beach. I think one of the world's smallest beaches, if that's some sort of distinction. So we're going to chat a little bit about today. Who we got? We got Greg, of course. Thank you. Somebody calling in from the UK. Hello from Canada. Love to see multiple continents represented. South Carolina, North Carolina, Somalia. This is a universal topic, and we're glad that we have people from all India coming in. Great to see all of you. Let's see who we've got here. Hello, 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 and hello. There we go. Wonderful. And of course, Greg McLaughlin. Thank you, Greg, as always, for joining one of our most steady participants. So let me share a few things here. What do we got? So I'll be talking to Stuart today. He's wondering why I haven't even brought him on yet. But we're working together as I'm an official brand ambassador for the Comma Group. If you don't know them, you should know them. They are a consultancy that is dedicated, completely focused on MDM, Master Data Management. And so that specialization really helps a lot of their clients accelerate many of those data challenges that you all run into when you're trying to do MDM. Let me get myself situated here. There we go. There's my official Comma Group coaster that I picked up last time I was in London. One of the times I was in London last year, where I met up with all those folks. They're a ball to be with, and we're going to tell that story for sure, our origin story. And speaking of telling stories, let's not forget, available now, telling your data story. Having some technical difficulty here, so I'll remove that. Out now as well, telling your data story, data storytelling for data management, 99% buzzword free, with forward by Greg McLaughlin himself. So writer of 9 novels and 1 forward that I know about. So delighted, excited. It's out there. It's on Amazon. It's on Technics Publication. Get a copy for you. Get a copy for that data darling in your life. Who else we've got? Data knows no bounds. Mumbai, we're here. Duncanfeld. Data knows no geographic boundaries. That is so true. Data is everywhere, and in some cases, people don't see it. They think it's nowhere, but we know it is absolutely everywhere. I'm gonna bring him in here. Look at that lovely fireside situation Stuart has. A lovely roaring fire, which I wish I had here. Any of you in the northeast of the U.S., you're about to get bombarded with a foot of snow, if not more. We're waiting for it for a classic nor'easter coming. But it's lovely there in Stewartville. Stuart, I think you're there somewhere.
I am here.
There he is. And look, he's got this little that's not CGI, folks. That's an actual copy of telling your data story right there.
Logs are very expensive. I need my fuel somehow. But I definitely.
Great to see you, Stuart. Good to see you. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Yes.
Good.
Very.
Yeah, just introduce yourself to the data lovers out there, the data cats, the data kitties, the data mungers, the data managers, the data practitioners, the data heroes that we know we're all.
So I'm Stuart Squires, consulting director with Comma Group. I've been doing data stuff for about 22 years now. Yeah.
Nice.
From doing data migrations into SAP in the early 2000s, through building MDM systems before they were called MDM systems, building PIMs before they were called PIMs, doing data quality stuff, doing data governance stuff when data governance became a thing. So I've been talking about data for a long time, much before it was sexy.
Yeah, before it was, the new anything.
Yes, yeah.
That's the part. We can dispense with the oil analogy later, but just the idea that it's the new, like data's not the new anything. I don't think so.
I've read an excerpt of a book, I can't remember who the author was, but saying about the Doomsday Book, which in the UK, that basically catalogued everybody who lived. Oh, was it that one?
Could have been in this book.
Could have been that book.
Possibly. The Doomsday Book? Who else would bring that up? Exactly. Yeah. So the Doomsday Book, very famous in
yes,
English history.
Data has been around. Yeah, you can talk about there's more data because there's more different types of media, more ways of storing. People are creating more and more and more. But it's still just data, isn't it?
It's still I heard somebody comment that they referred to caveman drawings as data.
Yeah.
Which made me think we can now prove that data is actually not the new oil. It's older than oil. If you take the Flintstones version of history.
Yes. Yeah.
Data is older than oil. So enough of that crazy stuff. So Stuart, what was your first data job? So if you're 22 years ago, what got you into data? What was the first?
It was a complete accident getting into data. I was 2 years into a degree, and I wanted a route out of physics. I knew I didn't really want to be a physicist. At that point, I didn't go, oh, but I'd really love to be a data guy, because I don't think anyone does that. So I took a year out from uni and went into the gas turbine business. And all of a sudden, I was surrounded by all sorts of data with spinning jet engines that sit on the ground and power oil stations. Data in oil.
Data in oil. I feel like this is going to be a motif in some way, officially.
I don't know about you, but I hate that analogy.
Oh, yeah. We'll do a whole show on just completely dispensing with what I like to call bad poetry.
Very bad poetry.
So you're there. So you're looking at these turbine engines.
Yeah.
And you saw the data. Most people just probably saw the engines spinning, but you saw the data.
One of the first programs I ever wrote was to balance blades around a disk. So a turbine, a jet engine has got all these blades that compress the air, so it goes to a really compressed state, and then they explode it and it shoots you forward or backwards. And I wrote a program that balanced those blades so you didn't get you didn't get any vibrations. And you've got this really complex thing, and it comes down to where's the center of gravity of one of the 80 blades around a disk. And if you get that wrong, it's a very expensive mistake.
It just goes flying through, right? Impaled.
Yeah.
So you were hands on keyboards, the whole thing. You got, as they say, you got physical.
I did get physical, yes.
You got physical. Wow. Yeah, because my data background, I don't touch anything. I'm just talking about it. I barely even dealt with tangibles in my career. So I'm not a tangibles or I'm way more on the conceptual level. Thank goodness, at least for me, I found some little niche that's keeping the lights on here. Oops, this isn't really. This is not. I'm not pleased with our. There we go.
There we go.
So that's your actual in action shot of you reading the book. We'll get back to the book, of course, because that's all I ever want to talk about. Where did we first meet? We first met. Let let me find out. Well, we first met here, right? That was kind of the first day. We met at the Scion House. We're in this room, by the way, folks. This is the room we're in, which was Hotspur's house for you Shakespeare fans, one of the many Hotspurs. Scion House outside of London, and it's a lovely room. It was somebody's house. They rented it out for events. We were at the Hilton Hotel next door at the CDO exchange, and we met there, right? We've spent the day or that evening in that room with the checkerboard floor. I forget who the gentleman was in the middle, but we certainly had fun with him, just regaling each other with all manner of stories. That's my recollection of that evening.
It was a very good night of storytelling.
It was fun. We were all in the zone, as they say. So the hardest part was not stepping on each other's punchlines. So you had to learn the discipline and say, okay, it's your story time. You tell the story. That's something for a tip for you storytellers out there. Try not to step on somebody else's punchline when they're telling the story. Wouldn't you agree, Stuart?
And you don't always have to be the storyteller. It's important to be a story listener as well.
Yes.
And a story reader. Read other people's books. Read and take inspiration. I'm very disappointed with how much plugging I'm doing. It's as if I need those big inflatable car salesman things behind me.
Yeah, that'll work. That'll work. And so we met each other. We'll just finish with this like wonderful presentation here. So we met each other that day, and then that night there was, I need a technical director. There was an event. Oops. There was an event with Peter Jackson and Caroline Carruthers, two folks that I know we both admire. They were launching their book, The Data-Driven Transformation.
That's the one.
And there was a book party that you told me about that first conversation, and you said you were going to go to this book party, and then you said later you weren't going to go to the book party. So I found out about the book party. I didn't even know Caroline and Peter. I think I just saw them at the session. And so I decided my usual typical Yankee boldness to just hop on the tube and show up at this party. And when I got to the desk where they had the badges, I didn't have a badge because I wasn't even invited. And this is me and Pete Wilkinson, who was a CDO, and he was there as well at the session. And so if you notice, you probably don't notice, but I picked up your badge.
I knew that.
I know this guy. He's not coming. I'll take this badge. And so I went as you, which I thought was rather bold, having just met you.
Yeah. The identification and verification of people going to that book party was obviously not very good.
There's a lot of master data lessons you could learn.
A lot of master
data. Identity verification, validation, authentication, duplication, missing values, search before you create. All of those parables were wrapped up in the fact that I just snatched that badge.
It's a valid badge, but it's inaccurate. It does not represent real life.
No, this is an incorrect tag. The data was tagged. So we went to this, and then we had all these fun interviews over at the IRM or at the IRM. See how much fun we have? We just kind of go back and forth, very animated. And then I met Sam. He doesn't seem quite as fun as you. No, Sam's great. Met Sam in New York at the MDM Data Governance Show.
Yeah,
that was the first time I had ever been exposed to Comma Group, and you guys had a session for lunch where you had a lot of props. You weren't there. I know you weren't there because you told me that bit. You explained it to me, and when you explained it to me, even though I saw it the first time and it didn't really, it flopped. What can I tell you? It's just, being in the audience, you need the hard feedback. But then you explained it to me, and I realized, it was actually something that if executed well, could have worked. But it was a painful exercise to watch somebody who's really struggling. I don't think they're with the company anymore. Not that I think that had anything to do with it, but they were using a bunch of props and they were trying to explain some sort of data parable. And
the presentation that you're talking about there is one where we basically follow instruction on stage. We have a number of people on stage who are making a drink, and they followed the instructions to the letter, and they make a glass of water. And the kicker at the end is they're actually making a gin and tonic. And if you have all the stakeholders involved, and if you're communicating well, and if you're taking feedback, and if you're actually listening, then you'll get it right. And the first time I did that was actually at a Stibo Systems conference in Amsterdam. And it was the morning after the middle day of the conference. So, and it was at 9 a.m. in the morning.
Oh, perfect time for gin and tonic.
Yeah. Perfect time for gin and tonic. A room full of very hungover people and very just watching, and also very hungover people making the cocktails on stage. But thankfully I had the consummate professional, who's my colleague, Catherine Cherry. She was playing the straight role, and I was facilitating, and I had various stooges on stage who were very good. And it is one of those things that, and stories often are successful or unsuccessful based upon the audience. If you know the audience are going to react to something like that, if you know you're in Amsterdam and you're going to have been doing a lot of drinking, right, and the people are going to react to that, and you know it's going to be good, then brilliant. I also gave that presentation in the EdXL in London, which is a massive arena, but it was at a conference. It was
sales and marketing, like a marketing data, marketing tech conference, was it?
Yeah, it was a marketing tech conference.
Yeah, it's one I didn't go to that one. I had a badge waiting for me there that I didn't take, but that's a different story.
And everybody had all this sexy artificial intelligence, virtual reality stuff, or it was just pure marketing stuff. And we were the only data people there. And we got an audience of 3. There were more people on stage than there were in the audience.
Oh, 3. Just 3. Yeah. Dot. That's it. Just 3.
That's it. Yeah. Within this little view. And in hindsight, I'd have thought about the audience better. We would have done something different.
Right.
We would have pulled people in better. We thought that this small fry table magic, if you like, of making cocktails would draw people in. But when you're at a conference of 80,000 people, it takes more than that to actually pull an audience and get them interested.
Right, more than just sort of a little subtle sleight of hand, very small bits. Well, another part of it is, ask me what the key to great storytelling is.
Scott, what is the key to great
storytelling?
Timing.
That's another important factor here. We have we have Khalid from Orlando. Hello from Dakar. We got just somebody saying, "Hey, how are you?" 20 years ago, I'm getting data in air, says Raymond. So all kinds of folks joining us. If you're just joining us, I'm here with Storyteller-in-Chief from the Comma Group, Stuart Squires. We're going to be doing this on a regular basis. So that's why we're just kind of easing into this casually.
Yeah.
Hopefully you notice a little less, bombarding energy. We're just kind of just chatting about data, chatting about stories, chatting about data stories, chatting about storied data. We'll do it all here, Stuart and I, as we talk about the importance of telling stories in the data space, bring on some folks who've actually gone through journeys and have their own epic tragedy, horror, comedy, road trip, whatever their genre is of their data story onward. Probably doing this every month or so. So let's talk for a minute just about the importance, your view too, Stuart, obviously, of telling stories, especially at the executive level when you're trying to implement something like MDM.
For me, one of the things is catching attention and making it relevant, because a lot of the stuff, when we're down at a granular level and looking at data quality stuff, I find it interesting. Some of it interesting. I find some of it boring. We've got people who find all of that really interesting. But your CEO or your CMO, they're interested in completely different things. But what they are interested in is the outcome. If you've got a very, very simple 50-year-old example of duplicate customers, if you've got duplicate customers in your customer database and you're sending out mail shots, then you're wasting money on stamps. And I don't know, that isn't a groundbreaking example. That's not a new example, but it's that sort of thing. Find what the CEO or the CMO or whoever's paying the bills, whoever your stakeholder is, find out what their problem is. And I remember actually the picture you flagged up before of us laughing. I think that a little bit after I did the data waggling.
You were talking about your very, very exclusive concept here. For those of you, you may want to practice this at home. This is the gesticulation. This is the accompanying gesticulation that I learned from Stuart when you talk about the concept of wangling, right?
Yeah.
Not wrangling. Don't confuse this with data wrangling. This isn't data wrangling. That's a whole different topic here. This is wangling, strategic wangling.
Yeah, I'd miss out the end. I'd just call it waggling.
Waggling.
Yeah.
I'll get this right at some point.
A piece of bad data down here, you pull it, and most piece of bad data you pull, and they don't have effect up here. But there'll be one that you pull it, and it has a really big effect up here. So it's finding which ones to pull that affect up here, or working from the top and going, right, what was here, working it down the tree. It's even weirder doing this when I can see myself on screen and I'm just there.
Don't be distracted by the monitor.
Yeah.
Pro tip: look at the camera. There you go, a little pro tip.
Yes.
But
it wasn't ridiculous enough that I've got a goose behind me wearing a dress.
I know. I want to hear about the goose. We do. All right, it's enough. There's probably people riding all over the. What's with the goose in the dress?
It's holding a shoe. That's what it is.
Of course.
Yeah. What would I have on the
yard sale? Is that a classic Van Dyke? Where did that come from? Tell us about that.
It came from my partner, actually. She's got quite an eclectic taste in art.
I would say so. Well, how does the duck even have hands?
Exactly.
And does it have feet, or is the duck just holding the shoe, maybe thinking, why do I have a shoe?
It's a good one. Have you ever played the game Dixit?
No,
Dixit.
I don't think so. Not intentionally.
Dixit. It's a story.
No, I don't know. I don't know that.
Storytelling game. So you get little components of the story, and you've got to make up a story off the back of it.
Oh, it sounds like a perfect game for me.
There's also story dice. Have you ever played with the story dice?
No.
You have 6 dice, I think it is. No, it's 9 dice. And you roll them, and they've got pictures on. And from those 9 pictures that they turn up, you make a story up, and you tell a story. And it's a brilliant icebreaker in any sort of conversation, any sort of workshop. Because it gets people's creative juices flowing. And it also, not for judging people, but it shows you people's strengths and people's weaknesses. And it can be used as a very quick, like Myers-Briggs type test. Huh. So you can see, right, that person's really introverted, so we're going to have to talk to them and give them space to go away and think about things. Whereas that person's just jumped right in, so they'll be jumping right in like I'm doing now.
Right.
And blasting you with a whole lot of stuff, but it might not all be relevant. Like people who tell stories about story dice just up on the field.
I think this all is relevant for me. I love this story dice. I can find some story dice idea. If you use regular dice, it's not as good, right?
No,
because it's just dot dot. You end up, it's a Morse code kind of thing.
Code, but you've only got certain letters.
If you just throw the dice out there. Story dice and Dixit was the other one.
Yes.
And so you start a story. It's like, okay, I'm walking down the street, and then I turned into blah, and then somebody else has to take it from there.
That's one mode of the game. Yes, it's competitive. it's actually quite a while since I played Dixit. I don't want to get the rules wrong, so I'm not going to try. I'll just make a Dixit fool of myself.
Okay. Elliot has an excellent idea. We need a game of data Dixit on the next one. We'll get right on that. Elliot, who works in marketing at Comma Group, he's now given himself an assignment inadvertently. Brilliant idea, Elliot. I don't mean that just in the British sense. I mean that in actually brilliant.
Yes.
But coming from the US, once you get like your 20th brilliant from somebody from the UK, you start to realize maybe it doesn't have quite the same impact.
Is it a very brilliant word then out in the...
It's a brilliant word. It's used, I think, a little more sparingly on this side of the pond. Is that the right reference? Yeah. So it's kind of a letdown for everybody in the US when they realize it's not real. It's brilliant. There's brilliant, and then there's brilliant. Hello from Denmark. Hello, Christian. Nice to see you. Thanks for joining us today. If there are questions other than how did these guys get LinkedIn Live, we'd love to take them, because that's what we're here for. We're here to talk about stories. We're here to talk about storytelling, the importance of storytelling. My version of part of my perspective in terms of storytelling is that just really you're able to connect emotionally with the other person in a way that just simply numbers or charts or stats are not going to engage them at the same level. And I think it's very important to have data storytelling for data management and be able to convey the importance and strategic urgency around your data management program. The only way to really do that to people who don't care about your data management program, and there are many, we're here for all the truth. We're here to give you the truth, the hard truth, nothing but the truth. Somebody's got to tell you that. There are people in your organization who do not care about your MDM program, who don't care about your data program. I know that, I get that. But bringing them into some form of narrative and constructing that narrative and practicing it and honing it and having a little drama, having a little suspense, having a payoff, having a natural narrative arc engages people at an emotional level, even when they believe they're not going to make an emotionally based decision. Thoughts, Stuart?
The arc is an interesting thing, because I'm one for structure. I'm a data guy. The rule of three is so important in all forms of art, be it photography, be it comedy, be it storytelling, making sure there is some pseudoscience behind it. And I'm sure there'll be a Simon Sinek type person who turns it into something pseudosciencey. But all I know is it works. Having a story that, first of all, has a beginning, a middle, and an end, and each one of those sections has got 3 sections. It works. It's the natural rhythm of things. And you can tell when I started saying this, I'd not planned it in my head. If this was a story that I planned, I would have planned it in 3 sections, and it would have a kicker at the end. As it happens, I've just petered out.
It's very meta. It's
yes.
very meta for those who are looking for that meta view. The thoughts behind the thoughts behind the thoughts. We go very deep here.
And analyzing those thoughts as they come out of your mouth in real time.
But there is a natural structure. And another pro tip for those of you listening out there who want to create a story, follow that structure, find that structure. Don't try to create everything brand new. There's a lot of ways that people go about explaining things that naturally help people understand them. So focus on the content, focus on the point of your story, and that will help you. But if you think about any joke, right? Usually in three, right? So we're at a bar and, guy 1 walks in and he says, blah. And the second guy said, yeah. And then the third guy said, bada boom. Again, a very meta, descriptive, generic way to do it. But the punchline doesn't come as the first guy. You've got to get people set up to have them understand what that little world you're building with a joke is, and then you reinforce it with the second instance of it, and now they're comfortable with this, and this all happens in microseconds. And then the third one is, all right, that's where the payoff is, and people are almost waiting for it. They're waiting for that third thing to happen because they know that's where it's going to be.
The reason films come in trilogies.
Here's a lovely question. Here's a whole paragraph. What are your thoughts on the creative process to create an engaging data story to convey to upper management? I'm at the worker bee level and struggling with how to engage 2 up and more levels to the struggles I see. Natalie, it's a great question. I would say one thing for sure, don't forget to get your copy of Telling Your Data Story, Data Storytelling for Data Management, with all the fun tips, workbooks, frameworks, and all kinds of other stuff. But in general, this is a great question because a lot of people are struggling with this. Engage with 2 up. Stuart, what are your thoughts on this?
I think going back to something I said before, it's about finding what turns them on. How is it relevant to them? How's it going to make their life easier? How's it going to make them look better? How's it going to hit their targets and measures? That's not an easy journey to go on between worker bee level and this little waggling up here, because there are multiple people in between, or at least one person in between.
Right.
And putting myself in that position as well, when we talk to clients and when we're working with clients, we're often one level removed from the decision maker. So we end up coaching the person who's having the conversation with the decision maker, but sometimes we don't ever meet that decision maker. So we're taking what this person in the middle thinks is important to that person and trying to convey that. So, and I think, sorry, I missed the name of the person who asked the question.
Natalie. It was Natalie. Nope, that's Chris. Sorry. Came up there. Here's Natalie.
I wouldn't just trust the word of the person who's in the middle between you. I'd see if it's easy if they're at sea level because you've got company reports, you've got company visions, company strategies that you can go for. I say it's easy. Those things are quite hard to digest and break down into data, but at least there's something tangible. If it's somebody in the middle who doesn't necessarily have a departmental strategy or a part of their organization strategy, then it might be hard to negotiate and break down what is important to them. If they do have a departmental strategy, get all over that. Start using their words. Don't use data words. Use words that they use to you. Because language, you can be talking English and you can be talking lots of sense in English, but if you talk to a French person who doesn't speak English and doesn't understand the jargon, then there's no point. Your content is meaningless.
If you want to speak to the business, you need to use the language of the business.
Yeah.
Not the other way around. As tempting as it might be to explain and elaborate on these wonderful data-oriented things that you've done, you only have a certain amount of time to capture somebody's attention.
Yeah.
And while they might be nodding yes on the outside, they might be nodding off on the inside if you're picking a topic that they really don't care about. So one point for sure, Natalie, and we're both reinforcing this, use the vocabulary of the audience that you're speaking to and limit the number of new pieces of terminology that you want to introduce. Be really critical of using anything new, and then you'll limit the amount of kind of buzzwords, vocabulary, nomenclature that shows up that's foreign. So there's one topic. That whole, and on all seriousness, Natalie, that is literally the topic of what I covered in my book and what Stuart and I will be talking plenty more about. So tune in next time, whenever that next time is. Not that we're signing off just yet. But that creative process, what I liked about your question is that you posed it as a creative process. Yeah. And that alone is already progress. And a creative process, if you're creative at all in whatever form of your life, whether it's a hobby, whether you used to paint, whether you're in music, whether you did drama, whatever that creative process is, you know, a creative process is hardly linear. It tends not to be very tidy. There's a lot of dead ends and mistakes. And so if you embrace that process as a process, you will be more satisfied with the result, because you'll know you'll get a little piece that doesn't work, or a note that doesn't sound right, or a twist of phrase that's ridiculous, or having to rehearse it a bunch of times. So, you know, a most important item to remember about embarking on a creative process is that it is both that. It is creative and it is a process. So just embrace that, as opposed to fighting the natural inclinations of that sort of thing.
I agree.
Any thoughts there, Stuart? I don't want to dominate the whole.
No, I don't want to answer that.
Here you go. You got a nice send up here from Arun. I know Arun. How are you, Arun? Good to see you. Last time I saw you, we were in the shadow of the London Bridge at the London Bridge Hotel, not the London Bridge Hotel, but the shadow of Tower Bridge. Sorry, common Yankee mistake. Tower Bridge at the IRM conference. We had a great fun meal at some crazy restaurant back in the day when you could bump into people and they'd go, hey, come to dinner with us. And then you go and you have a great time. And then, you know, everybody wanders home and back to their hotels and so on. Can't do that right now. Can't do that. Got to resist. Can't get out there. So
yeah, I could trump your Aaron story, because I met him when he first left for university, when he was a tiny little boy.
Oh, really? Okay. So
he won't thank me for that.
But before the shaving. Okay. So,
yeah. Oh, he doesn't shave now. Oh.
A journey of discovery first and translate to their priorities. I appreciate. I plan to get your book. Okay. Well, all right. I've sold a book today. I made my quota. No, there's all kinds of and check out the Comma site too. So the Comma Group site, they go through this. So they have wonderful analogies. They've got a lot of humor, which is part of why we became fast friends together. We're formalized that relationship a little more, but it was an organic relationship that came together with, we have a common way, we have a similar way to view the data space, similar techniques on how we approach it, similar thoughts around the priorities of any part of MDM. And so it was natural for us to just be working more and more together. So I'm very excited.
You may be selling another book today, Scott, because my fire's gone out.
So. It's a little cold here. I'd like a little, if you could warm it up a little bit here, that would be appreciated. But that's an actual, that's not a television. That's Stuart's fireplace with my book right next to it over by the kindling. So just don't do that with your e-book. Don't do it with a Kindle copy, okay? Because you'll just blow the whole iPad.
Sure.
You don't want to do that. You get fumes and all kinds of noxious stuff. Believe it or not, we're at 37 minutes. I don't know. Should we wrap it up? Should we take some more questions? Are people having a good time? This is fun. I like this a little more casual. I tend to be all hyped up on some of this stuff, so I try to take it down a few notches.
We can do hyped up.
We can do that. We want to save it. Great to see you, Scott. Yep, a beer under the bridge. That was good times. We will have more. It will come back again. Hello from Texas. Nice to see you. You're most welcome as well, Christian. Anything else we've got here? There we go. Just clicking on this. Thank you. I think we're out of comments. So, any parting thoughts here? Stuart, to put you on the spot again.
Yeah. Any parting shots? Everything for me is a story. In order to get any sort of message across the line, be it data, be it whatever, and the better you plan your story, the less chance there is of you getting to an end of a thing and having to stumble through a parting shot. But yeah, it is all about planning. These sorts of things are better unrehearsed. And I've really enjoyed your company as always, Scott.
As always, Stuart. It flew right by. We're 39 minutes here. Not that we're paying by the minute, but we want to save some when we come back. Thanks for coming. Thanks for joining us. Thanks everybody out there for joining us for telling data stories with Scott and Stuart, or Stuart and Scott. We'll swap it around every once in a while. We're going to come back. We're going to come back with some more. I think we'll take some of these clues that people gave us already, maybe a little more formal review of the creative process, maybe some examples of data story structure. I know I will definitely elaborate, as I always do, on the type of data storytelling I think you and I focus on, which is telling stories about data, which is different than the more popular, at least at this point, and well-known data storytelling, which is stories with data that's focused on analytics, business intelligence. Super important, but you got to have both. Don't choose either or. This is not Sophie's choice. Got to have both. Stories about your data, which I believe come first. That's determine the truth. Stories with your data, that comes later. Deriving meaning, truth and meaning. That's all you got to think about when you think about data, what you want to get out of it. But I want to thank you, Stuart, for joining us.
Pleasure.
And we'll see you all next time. We'll probably do this once a month at the very least.
Yes.
That sound good? Thank you, Khalid. Thank you for joining us as well. Send us your thoughts. Send us your stories. And we will want to hear your data stories too. That's for sure.
Good night and good morning.
Good night, good morning. So thank you all very much. Thanks, everybody. Scott Taylor, the Data Whisperer, signing off one more time. Thank you, Stuart Squires. We will see you next time on Telling Data Stories.